I want to introduce you to Tish Buckley, and she's going to talk about her spiritual heritage. Through the Lenten season, we've had a different person share their faith journey, their spiritual story, and Tish is going to share hers today. Come on up, Tish. I'll grab you a stand. I'm not sure if I need to intro you more. Your story tells you. Your mic's good?
I think so.
Yeah,
yes.
okay.
Thank you very much. Good morning. As Orville said, my name is Tish, and as some of you know, I've been around Wellington Square for a long time, actually since the early 80s. So that's quite a while. When Orville called and asked me to consider sharing this morning, I was a bit puzzled because my life is pretty ordinary. I have gone through a lot of the same things that many of you are going through, but I've also had some pretty distinct privileges. One privilege that I have is that I was born in Canada into a wonderful, loving, very Christian home. Going to church and saying our prayers together, serving others, that's just the way life was. Interesting though, both of my parents were very deeply committed to serving and to going to church. They, and therefore we, certainly never talked about it. Being a Christian wasn't something I thought about, it just was. That wasn't all that unusual during the time I was growing up. My dad, and therefore, of course, the rest of us were in the armed forces, and we moved around a lot. But family, and definitely church, and to some degree school, those were the constants. No matter where we were living, Sunday meant church, Sunday school, and usually at that time there were catechism classes attached to Sunday school. Then one summer, while I was still a student at university, I went off to teach swimming at a children's camp just outside of Quebec City. The campers there were all francophones, Québécois, and they were, of course, mostly Roman Catholic at that time. They were therefore required to attend Sunday Mass as part of the program. Somebody found out I wasn't Catholic. I wasn't terribly interested in Mass, but I did have a reasonable knowledge of the Bible thanks to those Sunday school catechism classes. So I was assigned the 5 or 6 campers who were not Catholic, and I was told to do something church-like with them. Fine. 3 things happened as a result. It was an amazing privilege. One was that I realized that I was a teacher. There was no 2 ways about it. 2, I discovered, really for the first time, the spirituality of openly discussing religion and beliefs in a beautiful clearing on a mountaintop on the south shore of the St. Lawrence River, which is truly a spectacular setting. The 3rd one, and probably the most important, was that I found out that thinking about what I truly believe and why I believe it, and listening very intentionally. I had always listened, but now I was listening intentionally for the voice of Christ. That's a very life-altering experience. I had found the power in being aware of and intentional about my faith, and that's made a very big difference in my life. Not really at the time, that just sort of happened, but all this percolated away for a number of years, and life just went on. It happened. I chose to live in Ontario. I did become a teacher. I got married. I had 3 sons. I moved to Burlington. I discovered Wellington Square, and life was very fine. Then I got divorced. Unfortunately, that's not an uncommon experience. I also became a single mom. And I decided that life was a little tougher than expected. But my sons continued to grow healthy and happy. And people at Wellington Square were always very supportive, both of them and of me. There were also lots of opportunities for service, so I felt right at home. I did decide at that point that my faith didn't provide an easy life, nor did it provide all the answers, particularly as the boys grew into teenagers. But it led me to understand that God does have a purpose it is not up to me to understand that purpose, but rather to know when to lean on him, to listen for his direction, to find comfort and joy in him. A Christ-centered life is truly awesome. Comforting, too, at that time was my teaching. Because I was working for the Catholic Board of Ed, I was able to bring my faith openly into the classroom, and I found that very powerful as we discussed things like imagery and literature and the purpose of speaking. A couple of years ago, I retired from teaching. I realized that my sons were all in good places in their own lives. I continued my involvement at different aspects of the congregation here at Wellington Square, and life continued to be very fine. But there are always twists in any path, and almost 2 years ago, I started a 5-month course of chemotherapy to fight breast cancer. It's, again, an unfortunate but all too common experience. But again, my friends here, I play in the bell choir, so the bell choir cohorts are ministers, and the board, too, here at Wellington Square were wonderfully supportive. No one should ever question the impact of supportive prayers. I felt their power. I continued on. I did the normal things. I went through surgery. I did 5 weeks of radiation. None of these are fun experiences. But as all this was happening, my first grandchild was born. A little girl. See, I can't even talk about it. Sloane Parker Buckley, and she's beautiful. She's just turned 2. She lives in Calgary, unfortunate but necessary. But she spent March break here in Ontario with me. Life doesn't get better. I'm so thankful. I don't know where my journey will take me next, but I do know that the joy and the awe that an intentional faith brings is an amazing gift. I thank Orville for the opportunity to speak this morning, because one of the opportunities of Easter is to remember just how awesome life is. Thank you, and happy Easter.